Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Sports Extra with the latest roundup of sports today. I am your host, Ahmad Nawaz. Once again, a fantastic lineup on the table for Sports Extra today. Let's take a look at what we're discussing. We'll start off with football, of course, and in football, it's going to be the Europa League encounters that took place. Some exciting encounters that we're going to be discussing, but obviously the highlight was West Ham United and how well did they perform. I mean, a 1-1 draw against Lyon, and I think they'll take that any moment of the day. Of course, good enough game. RB Leipzig against Atlanta, 1-1 draw. Braga beat the Rangers 1-0. But Barcelona were absolutely clueless. Ferran Torres finally saved them. I think that would be there. So they drew 1-1 against Frankfurt. But I mean it when I say that Ferran Torres really saved them. Otherwise, it would have been embarrassment for Barcelona the way they were going into the game itself as well. After football, we will be discussing more sports news on Sports Extra. It will be the NBA, and in NBA playoffs, the Lakers have been eliminated from the playoff contention. It's a 7th straight loss for the Lakers. Elsewhere, Phoenix Suns have beaten the LA Lakers as well, as we're giving you the details. And then, of course, Spurs have clinched the play-in spot as well. Lakers are being mocked at right now. I mean, the highest amount of memes are against the Lakers. So we're going to be discussing what has made this downfall possible, what has gone wrong this season. I mean, 7 out of 7, losing them must take a big heart. So we'll have that on the table as well. After that, we'll be moving on to some action of UFC. And in the UFC, it's UFC 273 that we're going to be discussing. It is going to be Khamzat Chimaev, who's taking on Gilbert Burns, the biggest test of Chimaev's career. He's known as the Chechenian warlord. His fight will take place on the 9th of April. He said, I will knock out Burns in under a minute. So that is really a fight to watch out for as well. That's what we have on the lineup for today. We're going to start off with football and the Europa League encounters that we will be discussing in detail. And before we move on, we've got a guest to introduce in studios. First of all, we've been joined by our sports expert, Mr. Ali Mehdi. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam, Ahmad.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
What's happening in the Europa League action? Let's take a look at this report and then come back.
1-1 draw in the first leg of the Europa League quarter-final tie with Frankfurt. The hosts had their lead just 3 minutes after the breakthrough, an excellent strike from Knopf. Barcelona levelled midway through the half thanks to Ferran Torres. Meanwhile, 10-man West Ham kept their hopes of reaching a first European semi-final since 1976, alive by battling to a draw against Lyon. Jared Bowen put the Hammers in front 7 minutes after the restart. West Ham's defences were eventually breached by Tanguy Ndombele, who tapped home from close range. On the other hand, Rangers will need to come from behind in Glasgow to reach the semi-finals of the Europa League after falling to a disappointing defeat in Braga, whereas Leipzig profited from David Zappacosta's misfortunate as his own goal cancelled out Luis Muriel's strike in the UEFA Europa League quarter-final first leg. Barcelona had to settle.
All you need to know about the Europa League encounters. Ali Mehdi, West Ham United, who would have thought that they'll be acing this time?
Look, West Ham have one thing in mind. They know that this is a golden opportunity to win a trophy. Look, West Ham, I think, have been one of the stars of the season, challenging for that top 5, top 6 position too. They won the Champions League. I still think it's going to be difficult for them, but they know that if they want a trophy, this is the one. Why do I say that? You look at all the other teams, there are no brilliant teams over there. So West Ham know that if they play the good football, if they continue like they have been progressing, who knows? Anybody, this is a tournament which everybody sees their eyes on, and I think they've been brilliant. You see at the beginning, Bowen got an excellent goal, and the most important thing is that they were playing counter-attacking football. They knew,
which is unlike West Ham.
Which is very unlike West Ham. You thought that they'd play possession-based football, but with only 28% possession, I thought they played extremely well. They sucked up the, against their opponents too, and then, when they got the opportunity, got that goal. Unfortunate in the second half that they got a red card too, and then the opposing team equalized. But overall, I think a magnificent performance of West Ham. A lot of credit has to be given.
Lyon would be frustrated. That's what I think. I think they wanted more from the game. They could have done more, but I think they were clueless at the end.
They were clueless at the end, but they should be happy that Ndombele, the former Spurs player, actually got the goal for them. So I think overall, they were slightly clueless. I think they should have done better than this. They are a very good team in Ligue 1. They've done very well in the past too. Qualified for many Champions Leagues. Also, won a league a couple of seasons ago. But last night, they just weren't there.
Ali Mehdi, it becomes interesting that sides now have realized that probably a more defensive approach is never going to work. They're probably going to concede a goal every now and then. That's why teams like West Ham United are now moving to a more proactive strategy of playing attacking and counter-attacking football.
That's the thing with with West Ham. Look, they were going to play according to their best suit over here, and their best suit is probably counter-attacking football too. I thought the first half, even though they were under so much pressure, regardless, they didn't seem they were ever going to concede a goal. I mean, how many shots did Lyon had? About 23 shots too, and only 4 on target. But nevertheless, you have to give a lot of credit to West Ham because they sucked up all that pressure. Had it not been for that red card, probably they would have won the game. But overall, I think considering that there's no away goal rule over here, I think West Ham should be the ascendancy because they play the good football.
Is them going deeper into the tournament?
I do think so. This is the quarter-final stage, then the semi-final, then final. Look, the best thing about West Ham, they have a very experienced manager in the form of David Moyes. He's very good in cup competitions, made so many FA Cup finals for Everton too. Obviously, when he managed Manchester United too, in that one season, took them to the quarter-finals. So I actually think that over here, that he's the experienced man. If he can actually manage this really with tumultuous Premier League season, with there's so many fixtures coming, I think they've got a good shot.
An animated David Moyes is what we like.
Very animated David Moyes, and look, this guy he's been through the mill, but nevertheless he's been doing extremely good, playing extremely good managing. You need to give him a lot of credit.
I mean, we talk about English Premier League clubs. People will talk about Mourinho, Guardiola, everybody that has been Klopp, especially, but David Moyes is up there.
David Moyes is up there. If you look at his history, other than that season he had with Manchester United, where expectations were so high, he's always finished in that top 10 position, top 8 position.
But that was a bad time to come in to manage United.
It was a difficult time at that time too, because you're coming after the greatest manager the world has ever seen in club football. Actually, he just retired too. So many expectations too, so much pressure, so much, and the whole the whole club and that squad was against him. But you have to give him credit because he's been doing so full well for West Ham. Qualifying for top 6, top 7 is extremely good in the Premier League and challenging for a trophy, which I think if he sticks to his plans and he doesn't have an injured, hampered squad, then he has a good chance.
He definitely has a good chance. I'd be putting my money on West Ham. I think I definitely want to give them the backing that they can probably produce something in this tournament and clinch it. Elsewhere, if we talk about the game, after what they did in La Liga, in El Clasico, I expected something far beyond better from Barcelona, but thank God to Ferran Torres that they were saved.
They were saved. I thought Frankfurt played extremely good football. I mean, they got the first goal in the first half. Knopf got an incredible goal. But, Barcelona nowhere at the races. You thought they've been playing so well in La Liga. I mean, they're on this incredible run over. They're second in the league. Who would have thought they'd be second in the league? Come from about 6th position. They were second in the league. And you thought they'd carry on this to the, Europa League. But look, they've never played in the Europa League, not that I can remember, not for a very long time, about 20, 25 years too. And you have to go to sticky places too, and Frankfurt have done extremely well. They were brilliant in the first half, 16 chances, about 5 on target. They should have scored a couple of more goals, but then once again, Barcelona capitalized after Knopf scored that goal, and then there was another red card over here too. Barcelona, in the form of Torres, saved them. Otherwise, I think that they've come out unscathed over here. Otherwise, I thought that genuinely Frankfurt should have gotten some more goals.
Barcelona, like you mentioned, their journey to greatness now. I think most of the credit goes to the manager himself. Xavi has been absolutely amazing. This is a game you would have thought that he would have wanted to go differently. But what do you think happened really? Because when you're coming from a back of such a victory, I mean, talk about Real Madrid, the way Benzema produced that spectacular hat-trick against Chelsea. Coming from down under and taking the game to redeem themselves from the El Clasico embarrassment. Carlos Ancelotti would have taken that happily. But for Xavi right now, he would have wanted so much more from the game.
He wanted so much. I think he got his cards wrong over there, Ahmad, because he came over here and he played so much possession-based football. Look, when you go to these sticky places too, you let the other team have the possession too. Let them, you can't play tiki-taka all the time, because if you do that, you're going to fall in the opposition's hands. That's why I felt that, he barely had any chances. We talk about 5 chances, 3 on target. The other team had about 16 to 5. Sometimes possession-based tiki-taka doesn't work for you. I mean, if you don't have world-class players, it's not going to work for you. You don't have the Messi's, the Iniesta himself, and then the Xavis, used to play too, who can get so many chances with that so much sort of position. But if you have 70+% possession and you only have 5 shots on target, there is something wrong.
Like you say, you think the mistake was that plan or strategy would have worked in La Liga, but this was something else.
Yeah, this was something else. Because what? Because look, a team like Frankfurt, they're really not going to care about the league. They know that the league is going to Bayern Munich too, or Bayern Munich, the Borussia Dortmund.
They've got everything to play for,
Yeah,
everything to lose.
They want to win this Europa League trophy. Like I told you over here, Europa League, everybody's targeting this thing too. So they would have done their homework. They knew that they're going to play tiki-taka. They're going to sit back, actually absorb all the pressure. And, they will feel let down because they should have got some more goals. So had it not been for that red card at the end by Tuta, they would have scored a couple of more goals. So
Definitely.
I think Barcelona are very lucky to come out 1-1.
Very lucky indeed. Elsewhere, RB Leipzig, another top-class German club, but Atlanta managed to getting them to a draw.
No, I think Atlanta did very well. Very unfortunate to concede that goal. Unfortunate to concede that goal. Their own player, Zaba Costa, got that goal too. And they got the early goal too with Muriel over there. But look, Atlanta is a team which, on their day, if they can go away from home and they can actually get a goal, they know that, they've got a fortress at home.
Yeah, they'll do that.
When they come at home, they're going to beat the opposition, through in and out. So I think that they'll be very happy with this over here. Unfortunate to get that own goal, but I think that going home, they're going to go and they should go through.
Braga beat Rangers?
Yeah, Braga beat Rangers. I didn't see that coming. I thought Rangers have been brilliant. A fellow colleague, Sabeel, Hazir himself said that the Rangers are probably the dark horses of this tournament, but I didn't see Braga, winning this. Look, this is the beauty of the Europa League, Ahmad. All these teams, who would have thought the likes of Braga would have won? I mean, would have beaten the likes of Rangers? Who thought Frankfurt would have actually drew with
Barcelona? Barcelona could have lost almost.
Yeah, they should have lost actually. But Braga, look, they're a team which they've always been in the periphery. They are about 6th, 7th in the Portuguese league too. But they're the sort of team, when you underestimate your opponents, you're going to actually be figured out. You're actually going to suffer. And that's what happened yesterday. I thought Rangers underestimated the likes of Braga. And now they've got all to play for now when they play at home.
Absolutely, because we're talking about this in detail. And of course, Ali Mehdi did just mention a name. And I will always say that whenever I miss you, I'll look at my heart because there where you always are. And it's been a while. He's definitely moved away, obviously, to good things ahead. Of course, we have missed him at Sports Extra daily. We're never going to forgive him for not giving us a good chance to give him a proper farewell, a proper send-off. But nonetheless, once a brother is always a brother. My co-anchor, our sports expert, football youth coach as well, Sabeel Hazir, is joining us all the way from Scotland. Sabeel, assalamu alaikum. How are you? Welcome to Sports Extra.
Walaikum assalam, Ahmad. It's a bit surreal to be all the way in Scotland and be back on the show, but it's really, really good to come back on and, obviously talk with you guys.
Yeah, we would have killed you if you were here, but I guess you ran away from that farewell, but things will be that. Maybe we can make our way there someday and get our revenge. But to be honest, I mean, we've really missed you daily on the show. That being said, let's talk about the Europa League. First of all, West Ham United. We're all praises for them. What would you like to say?
I think West Ham, the fact that they pulled this off with a red card, like to go and score after Cresswell gets sent off when he's such a vital part of your defense, to get the goal in a game where you've barely touched the ball, to get a draw in a game where you barely touched the ball. It's incredible. You look at the stats, but you actually look at the way they played as well. It was really incredible. A very, very tough ask, but I think they deserve all the plaudits in the world. And this is the kind of resilience that if you want to go far in major tournaments and you want to do well in Europe, you need to have that kind of resilience. So it's an incredible performance, and I think all credit to them. Bowen is an amazing player. He can score against any level of opposition, and he's proving that in the Europa League.
Yeah, you got to accept the genius of David Moyes now. You can't just ignore that.
Yeah, like I believe this since he joined United as well, that was too much of a club. When you give him a mid-table club, he transforms them into a top team. That is what he does. Because maybe it's the weight of expectations, maybe it's the support staff around him, maybe it's the culture at the club. But these mid-table clubs like Everton, we saw at that, and then now at West Ham, this is where he'll do his best work. And this is probably the best we've seen from David Moyes, because This is an incredible run in Europe, and they're slipping off a bit in the league time to time, but they're still performing well there overall.
Definitely. Elsewhere, Ferran Torres came to the rescue of Barcelona, definitely.
Yeah, I think Ali just mentioned that perhaps they should have lost that game. Again, if you can't beat a team with a man down, there's another red card in this game. Again, they've lost one of their defenders. It's Barcelona is still too inconsistent. Like, they've done very well since Xavi's joined. They're playing better football. They're getting more results. Traore and Aubameyang coming in has been great, and Torres coming into the club has been amazing. But they're still, even if they win their game in hand in the league, they're still 9 points off Madrid. And even if, and they keep doing this where they're struggling in the first leg and then hoping that at home in the second leg they can take a result, that's fine for now. But when you get to the semis, or if you get to the final, right, like when you only have one match to play, it becomes a bit tricky. So they need to find a bit more consistency if they want to come home with this trophy, which I don't think they will.
Would you agree that the strategy that they were playing with might work in La Liga, but certainly wasn't there for this game?
Yeah, I think when your play is like obviously having the faster players up front now, they have a very, very fast forward line and they've got very, very good players there. And when you've got Pedri, Gavi and Busquets keeping the ball so well and then trying to penetrate through the lines with Traore, with Torres and Aubameyang as well, he can drift out a little bit. That'll work, and that'll work against most teams in La Liga because obviously Barcelona keep possession phenomenally well, and then to keep picking out those penetrative passes, teams can't cope with it. But German opposition as well, there's a bit more, let's say they're a bit more solid in midfield, so you're not going to be able to boss them around that much if you're not consistent. If you are one or two stray passes, and that's not going to work in European competition. So if they were consistent with their style of play, I think it would transfer over to Europe. It's just that they're so inconsistent when they do, they get a result in the league or they get a result in Europe, then they won't get one in the next match they play. So that's the issue with them.
That is definitely the issue. Sabeel, might be off topic, but since you're there, is Scotland making it to the World Cup?
I have no idea. I really, really, really hope so, because if they do, it's England in their group and everybody wants to see Scotland versus England at the World Cup. But knowing Scotland, they'll probably beat England to knock both of them out of the World Cup.
That would be interesting. But that being said, would you agree, like what Sabeel said about Barcelona, that is the case?
No, I just definitely think that's the case. When it's in La Liga, you can actually figure out, you can drift through the, through that midfield and, from the attackers too. But I think in Germany, it's different. They've got a much more solid midfield, and then, their defense is also packed to actually resist.
Yeah, pragmatic defense.
Yeah, exactly. So therefore, that means they will mentally prepare for it. Like I told you before, Frankfurt is a team, who really don't care much about the league too. They know that this is a golden opportunity for them, so they did their homework yesterday.
Eintracht Frankfurt, man.
Yeah.
The Germans are obviously something else when we talk about football, that as well. But that would be the Europa League. Now, moving our focus to other sports as well, we have to talk about some major things happening in the world of sports, especially if we talk about NBA. I think it was absurd that the Lakers managing to lose 7 out of 7 straight games and out of the playoff contention. Phoenix, of course, beating them. Spurs clinching the play-in spot is also there. But first of all, Sabeel, what has happened there at NBA with the Lakers?
So the Lakers have shown a lot of inconsistency. I think this has been caused by some injuries. So obviously LeBron James has been out. I think Westbrook has not found his feet. They traded in a very young player to get Westbrook in, and I don't think that gamble has paid off. I think he's been very inconsistent. And they've had a few other injuries. They've had a player just come back at the start of this month. So the injuries has caused a lot of inconsistency. But it's also an over-reliance on James. So when he got injured, it was like there was no backup because Westbrook, like I said, hadn't found his feet. And the straight losses, like obviously they needed to win just to stay mathematically in the game. It's not like if they won, they were through. That would just give them a mathematical chance. So in my opinion, like 4 or 5 games ago, this was over for the Lakers. And this was just abysmal. What's odd is in the 4 years or so since LeBron has been there, he's won once, but this is the second time he's been not even made it to the playoffs. So it's like 4 times in his career he hasn't made it to the playoff, and twice with Lakers. So there is a problem with inconsistency, and I think it's the trading. They really needed to be smarter. I'm a big fan of Westbrook. I don't think that gamble's paid off, and I think with the young core they had, they could have done a lot more than bring in some old senior players when they are struggling with injuries. Obviously, younger players are probably less likely to get injured.
Definitely, that is. You agree? Obviously, that LeBron factor has affected them, but that's what happens when you build a system around one individual, then that's how it collapses.
That's the problem exactly. 2 years ago, who would have thought that, for the next 2 consecutive years, they're not going to qualify the playoffs. They won the title when the pandemic actually had. They were brilliant that season, everything was working. But now that they're big player, this LeBron James gone, they're just fallen apart. This is a team this year unheard of, who lost 49 games this season, only won 31, and probably 11th right now on the table. Who would have thought, such a dynamic team, probably the most followed team after Chicago Bulls, if you talk about in history, with LA Lakers. So I think it's unheard of. And he was talking about Westbrook. I thought that he hasn't been able to make them cut the mustard too. And they really need to, in the offseason, they need to make the trade-offs.
Yeah, the bar's set very high now for them. At least expectations are millennial.
I mean, obviously, you have probably the most highest paid player in the NBA, who is actually, and if he gets injured, you can't rely. He's not I'm sorry, but he's not a Michael Jordan. People can go on about this debate forever, but at the end of the day, you have a system which is only dependent on him too. You don't have the world-class players which all the previous teams too, and the previous Lakers too had to over here. So I think that over here, they've been found out. Unless they make some good trade-offs, they get some good players, got some good youth in the off-season too. I think it's going to be a similar story. It's 2 seasons consecutively now they haven't made the playoffs.
Sabeel, Frank Vogel is expected to leave as well. So it is a decision that is widely expected as well.
Yeah, so the coach has to go, I think. And also, it'll be interesting, it'll be interesting to see where LeBron goes as well, because whether he stays or not is now up for debate. So they're in big trouble, but everybody was expecting a rebuild as well. So I think they need to be a bit smarter with the people they bring in now. And I think a young core, look, even if you're not making the playoffs, you'd rather not make it with a young core of players who maybe can develop into something. Because remember, before Jordan, the Bulls were doing that, right? They were bringing in a lot of young players, not having success, and it took them about a decade to get the success that they wanted. Lakers won't need to wait that long, but they need to stick with a group. Trading in players for veterans who may or may not get injured and not even play half the season, it's tricky. I know they want that X factor, but maybe they can try bringing in and now they're going to need to bring in somebody new and a couple of new people, because they're losing probably their coach LeBron. They need a rebuild.
They need a rebuild. It's been a rain of memes from all around the world. People going to an extent where they put the very famous Oscars incident between Will Smith and the host and saying that this is every Lakers game against the Suns.
It's incredible,
It's embarrassing, actually.
It's embarrassing too. But look, this is what happens when a team like LA Lakers doesn't actually qualify or doesn't do extremely well. We've seen it with so many other teams around the world. Barcelona in football, Manchester United in football too. But Lakers, had to see this coming. If they weren't going to perform well, they've got so many critics. If you talk about the NBA, there are a lot of critics over there.
Ali Mehdi, Lakers not qualifying for the playoffs, their 7th straight loss, is never going to consolidate our wound for Manchester United. It's never going to do that.
It's not going to do that. But if you ask an American in the US or an NBA fan over there, that they'll tell you that.
Understand the pain.
they'll be able to tell you what it means to.
Definitely. Spurs clinching the play-in spot. Sabeel.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I said the Spurs have clinched the play-in spot instead. So talk about them as well.
Look, realistically, they're not going further than the playoffs. If they do, I think it'll be quite surprising. You're looking at Golden State from the conference. You're looking at Golden State pretty much as one of the favorites to not just go home with obviously playoffs, but to go home with the finals. So I think good on them, but it's not like the Lakers or them are gonna protect. Like I can be proven wrong. Obviously, these are the elite athletes. But I don't think realistically we're looking at either, even them, they're not looking to probably make the finals.
You agree?
No, I completely agree.
Golden State, all the money on
Golden State. This is the team which won 3 consecutive NBA titles a few years ago, and with Curry back and with them firing on all cylinders, they were going through a transition period. They had some problems, but now they're back, and they're going to come back with a bang. I think my money would be on them.
On them as well, but that will be that. The Lakers are out, but then again, of course, some more action from the NBA that would be coming up in the next due time as well. Moving on to UFC. We're going to be talking about UFC in detail and UFC 273. But before that, we've got a report on Khamzat Chimaev, the Chechenian warlord as he's known. Let's take a look and then come back.
Khamzat Chimaev, 1-1.
A dominant wrestler who has developed a knack for knocking people out with his hands. A workhorse who never gets tired. An absolute machine in the gym. 27-year-old Chechnya-born Swede Khamzat Chimaev faces the biggest test of his career on April 9th at UFC 273, taking on top 5 welterweight Gilbert Burns. Chimaev burst on the UFC scene with a vengeance in the summer of 2020, finishing 3 opponents in barely 2 months with thoroughly dominant performances. But then he spent 13 months on the sideline, his career derailed by a difficult bout with COVID-19. Once he was healthy, he picked up right where he left off and continued his historic run. After an absence of over a year, Khamzat returned to the octagon at UFC 267 on October 30th, and he did not miss a beat. Over the last 2 years, Khamzat has been surrounded by hype nearly unprecedented in the UFC. He has finished all 4 of his opponents, 3 of them inside the first round. He set a modern UFC record in 2020 by winning 2 fights in just 10 days. So far, he's outlanded his UFC opponents in total strikes by 254 for 2. The UFC 273 is already a fork in the road for Chimaev, whose UFC career has only just begun.
Everybody, I come in for everybody, kill everybody!
On a card with 2 title fights, it's Chimaev everyone is talking about. If Chimaev wins, especially if he wins spectacularly, he could earn a shot at the UFC's welterweight title. Nonetheless, the myth of Khamzat Chimaev is real. It was written in the war-ravaged Republic of Chechnya and the basement of MMA gym in Sweden. However, now the real question arises, will the legacy surpass the myth?
Well, there you have it, UFC 273. Sabeel Hazir, the Chechnyan warlord, says he's going to knock out Burns in under a minute. What do you have to say about the probably a biggest test of his career?
I think, look, people like to talk in the UFC, people like to talk in MMA. This is one of the guys who can probably back it up. He is an incredible fighter, so people obviously know that he's a dominant wrestler, but he's got striking power. Like, he doesn't have the cleanest technique, but he has knockout power. So it's very realistic he can go out there. Burns, a lot of respect for the guy. He was once a contender for the title. He's still quite high up in the rankings. He's a great wrestler himself. He's got very good he's developed very good striking technique, but he is older now. I do think, I don't know how this fight is generally going to go, because it depends if we get the aging Burns versus the dominant Chimaev, or do we get the Burns can he get that past energy back, when he was a contender. But realistically, Khamzat's going to win this quite dominantly. He's been dominant in his amateur career. He's been dominant in his professional career. And people need to understand, just because he's a grappler doesn't mean, when he says he can knock somebody out, that's not just nonsense. It's because he's actually, before he joined the UFC, I think 4 out of his 6 fights professionally before that, he won with TKOs and KOs. He's knocking people out and hitting them with significant strikes. So he does have knockout power, and it's going to be a great fight. And I hope the hype train continues, because he looks like such a complete, the complete package. He looks so dominant.
Man, Ali Mehdi, these guys from, Chechnyan origin are a different breed of fighters.
They're different breed of fighters, and look, these people, these fighters actually, as soon as they come out of the womb, they are actually bred to actually go into the UFC, to become fighters, to work on their grappling techniques, on their high striking techniques, and he's the complete package over there. He is, like, you could say, the modern day Khabib over here. He's got incredible striking ability, good grappling power, and he's hungry. The most important thing is that, he's won his 2 major fights inside 7 days. He's been brilliant all round, and there's a lot of hype around him, but because there is a reason he's got a lot of hype, and that is because he genuinely is the real deal over there. He can actually talk very well too. At the same time, I think he's got youth over here. And he should be able to see the aging Burns, because at the end of the day, he is hungry, and I genuinely feel that, that he is going to cause some surprise.
Agility might be not on Burns' side, let's be honest. That could be the case for the Chechnyan warlord. But Sabeel 273 is giving us 2 title fights. The other one, obviously, is Volkomski versus the Korean Zombie.
That's another good fight. I think the Korean Zombie, I really like his approach. I think he's quite cool, but might be too much in this fight for him.
Definitely too much. But talking about Burns himself, as Ali Mehdi said, that probably victory might not be on his side this time. But overall, how do you see Burns of an opponent for Chimaev?
I think it'll be good, because you've got somebody who can kind of keep up on the ground, but I say that based on his CV, but if you look at it, Hamza's got like this kind of grappling which is so dominant. And let's not forget, he's technically only a blue belt, although we all know he's grappling at a level far beyond that, but he hasn't been given a higher belt at his gym. So it's going to be a really, really good matchup on the ground. But again, I think people really need to take, and I think they do, they take his striking seriously because he has that knockout power. But it'll be a good opponent for him. And realistically, in the welterweight division, without Kobe, without Usman, it is Khamzat is the next guy. So and Burns is it's an interesting, like, when you look at it from a bit of a meta perspective, it's this guy, one of the old guard, once a contender. Maybe if Khamzat beats him, it's kind of symbolic for a passing of a torch that, oh, you're the next guy coming up and you're the next big grappler and you're the next big fighter.
But Sabeel, I mean, having a better record than the times you're hit in an octagon is something very special. I mean, I still know it's too early to call for him, but that is a really impressive record.
Are you talking about Khamzat's undefeated streak? Because yes, it is very impressive. It's not just that. If you're a fan of fighting as a whole, not just the UFC, go look at this guy's Swedish wrestling championship record. Like, he won, I think, 3 in a row. He wasn't just winning matches, he was winning 10-0s. Like, he was dominating those grappling competitions. So it's not like it just started in pro fighting, towards the end of that wrestling career, when he transitioned into MMA, he was dominant. And then he transitioned into MMA, the 6 pro fights he had before joining the UFC, dominant again. So that record, while the number itself is very impressive, much like Khabib, the similarity is it's not just the record, it's the amount of power and domination. And these are pro fighters that he's making look like they're amateurs. And obviously that's not the case, but that just shows his level.
Definitely does. Ali Mehdi, nobody's gets in the ring with the Chechen warlord. I'll be very honest. The way Sabeel puts it as well, this guy is really impressive. He looks like the complete fighter out there.
Look, I think I haven't been this excited in UFC since Khabib left. I mean, this guy is the real deal. This guy is going to knock out. I can promise you, he's going to knock out Burns the other night. And look, Burns, he has the experience and everything, but this guy, the way he's been actually moving around, his agility, his strength, his knockout power, you name it, he is the complete deal. And you see at UFC 273, he will knock out Burns.
He will definitely knock it out. Ali Mehdi and Sabeel Hazir, thank you very much for joining us on Sports Extra. It is UFC 273, a double title fight action, but it's always going to be about Chimaev and Burns because that is the hyped up fight to look out for on the 9th, and it's going to be great action coming your way from UFC 273. That's all we have time for. From me and the entire team, it's goodbye for now.